Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thanks so much for popping by here. And yes, today is the exciting second episode of the 3D False Matrix program series, where we're going to be going over some limited beliefs and how we can shift our perception to being the creators of our reality. Because the truth is, we are always creating our reality. Even if we do live in this fear or victim mode, we're creating from that place of fear. And if one is in fear, one is in victim. So if you're creating from a place of victim, you're just creating more circumstances to make you feel that way. And so we can think of we're either creating from fear or we're creating from ego. And the ego is interesting because you can think of it as representing the separate self. So I often call it the fearful ego, because if one is viewing themselves as separate, that's fear. So I kind of wrap fear and ego all in one. But the ego itself there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with anything. But the ego can be very helpful because that's the patterns of our personality and all these kind of things. If you check out your natal chart and all that kind of cool stuff, you kind of get this good idea of what these patterns you chose for your life, for this lifetime. And so knowing that can be very helpful. It's just when we are thinking of the separate self, disconnected from everything, then the world does become very fearful. So we can create from fear or the ego, or we can create from our self, capital S self. And that is what people call the higher self, the divine self, the inner being, the essence. There's so many words for this, what we are inside. Holy Spirit. I call it the higher self, or just capital S self. And so, yeah, so what this series is we realize that we are not the victims, but we're creating everything. And then we can let go of these limited beliefs, these programming. And all of this programming is fear-based programming to allow us to have our original self shine through. And so that's a nice segue into, I just wanted to give a brief mention of these dimensions. So of course I say the 3D false matrix. Why do I say that? Because although all is an illusion, in the 3D false matrix, what I'm calling it, is all the fear-based beliefs. That's the false part, is the fear. And if we think of 4D, this is spiritual awakening, realizing, oh, there's got to be a better way. You start to notice things, and maybe you hear something from someone and it resonates with you. Whatever it is, that's kind of, you're going into 4D when you're awakening to these things. And that process, it can take a long time or a short time. It all depends on your path. And then what people call 5D is when you're living as your higher self. So easy way to think of it is you're just living in love completely. And this 3D false matrix, this fear-based programming, completely gone. And there's no judgment. You see everyone as a part of you. And yeah, it's a very beautiful thing. And there's lots of people talking about it these days. So I encourage, if you're more interested in learning about these dimensions to check that out. But I just wanted to give you my brief kind of look at them just because I feel it simplifies things. So 3D is the fear-based living, 4D is awakening, 5D is living in love as your true self, the higher self, and then it just keeps going up from there. So yeah, today I wanted to talk to you about responsibility. And that word responsibility just means the ability to respond or ability to respond. And the funny thing is I have a whole list of different fun topics to share. This one wasn't even on the list. It just came to me this morning and it was like, today, this is what you do. So I am just going with the flow and following that intuition to do this topic today. So when we think of responsibility in the 3D false matrix sense, we think of things in the material world. We think of responsibility as being an outside thing, like you have a job and at the job they say these are your responsibilities, or you maybe want a house and people say, oh, but you need to have all these responsibilities, you have to be responsible for this and that if you want to do that. Or it could be relationships, anything external. Of course, those things, they can be loving and amazing, but I'm talking about it from the fear side. So there's this thing I see a lot where people say, oh, they're just not responsible enough. Say for a job, for a management position, oh, that person's not responsible enough. What is that? It's a judgment. What is judgment? Attack. And then if you pay attention to the words, they're not responsible enough, that implies they're lacking something, which no one is. And then it's also kind of blaming them, which is also judgment. So it's all a whole whack of fearful emotions tied into this idea of this outer responsibility. And the most interesting thing that came to me this morning when I was thinking about this was that when we're thinking about this outer responsibility, we're not paying attention to our feelings. We're at work and we have these responsibilities, and it doesn't matter how we feel, we got to get it done. And typically, more often than not, you won't be feeling very good while doing these things that you're being kind of forced to do, or what you signed up to do for money. And none of this is a bad thing. It's just I'm giving you this to think about. So that really struck me as these kind of outer responsibilities. It doesn't matter how you feel. You just got to get it done. And then we'll call you responsible. So that, in a nutshell, is the 3D false matrix program of responsibility that I had been taught growing up by society, by everyone, employers, by school teachers, by in the family, all this kind of thing. So now let's go to the other side, we can call it the 5D side or the love side, and see how responsibility looks here. I'll give you a whole new definition of responsibility. So responsibility, let's remember that word means ability to respond. So when we're looking at it from the side of the love side, responsibility is about the self, the internal, not the external. So let's take it from there. We're looking at responsibility from the self. So what are we responsible for? Well, our beliefs, because our beliefs influence our thoughts. Our thoughts influence what we speak and our emotions, which influence how we feel, which influences how we act, which influences literally everything in our entire outer reality and inner reality, because the inner reality creates the outer reality. So one who's responsible of their inner world has the knowing that if I'm responsible for my beliefs, thoughts, feelings, etc., I will create the outer world of my desire. Not the other way around, where someone's thinking they need to be responsible of their outer world and they just abandon their inner world. Is completely flipped. It's taking responsibility of your inner world to create your outer world. And on this side, feeling, especially feeling good, is number one priority. And why? Because when we feel good, when we feel joyful, we know that we're in alignment with that divine self, with our higher self, with our capital S self. So it's not a big deal if other emotions come up. Of course, we want to, whatever emotion comes up, feel it as long as you need, and then let it go so that you can come back to feeling good. This was a stumbling block for me, because when I started learning about this stuff about wanting to feel good all the time, I actually started suppressing these negative emotions again, and I've been doing it my whole life. That's why I've had various addictions and this kind of thing, of suppressing these emotions. And I realized it, and I was like, oh. And so I've realized these great ways of getting it out. So punching a pillow and swearing. That one works really well for me. Going for a drive with the windows rolled up and just screaming, yelling your heart out, just putting all that energy out through the vibrations has also been extremely helpful, because you don't want those negative emotions to sit around. You want to feel them and let them go. Because if you can let them go, then you're going to naturally be feeling good because you've let it go. But then it won't keep resurfacing. Because what I've found in my life is that if you don't let something go, it's going to keep coming up again and again and again and again until you get it out somehow. And yeah, it really works. The punching a pillow thing, like I will sometimes feel these things stir up in me, and I'll think, that's not me. That's just coming from something I dealt with. Like, for example, I was thinking about something, and of course we choose our experiences, and when we are hurt by others or situations, we actually have agreed to that. But you can have anger that's lingering around. And for me, punch a pillow, swear, I'll literally feel like the energy come out of me, and I'll feel like so light that I have to actually sit down after, just because I feel so light. And that's how you know that it worked, is that you feel different afterward. So this may take some practice, some learning. Maybe you have a different way of releasing this. But long story short is that we want to, when we have this inner responsibility, it's our responsibility to feel every emotion. It doesn't matter where it is on the spectrum. We're here on earth to feel every emotion. And we never want to deprive ourselves or anyone else of feeling emotions, no matter where it is on the spectrum. But if we don't want to get stuck in a cycle of feeling these lower ones, we want to let them go. And then we'll just naturally rise up, and that's a beautiful thing. And so another thing that really came to mind when I was thinking about sharing this with you today was that when we have that inner responsibility, we are open to our intuition. So think of it as this way. You're going through, or say you're driving somewhere and you're at a stoplight and you usually go right, and today you just feel this intuition saying go left. Well, if you have that internal responsibility, internal ability to respond, you'll trust that intuition and you'll go left instead of right. And who knows, maybe there was an accident to the right and you get to go around. It'll be way faster and way better. Maybe you'll see some sort of cool sign. Maybe you'll see a number or a person or an animal or something that'll brighten your day. You never know. And that's a beautiful part of it too, is that when you're trusting your intuition, your inspiration, then life will unfold for you in these beautiful, magical ways that you could have never even imagined. And so that is a place where I just love being in that zone and always want to stay there for as long as possible. So yeah, it's trusting that intuition, inspiration, and acting on that. For another example is, for me, I just felt today when I got up, okay, today is a video day. We're going to do this. So if I wasn't trusting that inspiration, I would have done something else, probably wouldn't have felt as good. And now I'm doing this. I feel so good as I'm speaking here, and I always feel great energy after I do these things. And so I followed that. I was responsible internally. So these are the major differences between the fear-based 3D false matrix program of responsibility that we're often taught in society, and the original, the OG responsibility that we're going to come back to as creators of our own lives. We're responsible for taking action on our intuition, our inspiration. Why? It's just going to make our life so much better. And when we're responsible for our own life, we know that we're the ones at the end of the day that we can thank for that. So yes, I feel I will leave it there, that we are complete for now. And yeah, just thank you so much for watching. Thanks for checking out the introduction video. I really appreciated that. I love you lots, and I'm wishing you a beautiful day today. And we'll talk to you soon. All right, bye-bye.